He stood motionless, mop still dripping, as the CEO unleashed a storm of insults before a room full of silent executives. Laughter simmered, eyes averted. No one questioned why a janitor was being humiliated so cruelly. But what they didn't know, what he never advertised, was that he wasn't just cleaning floors. He had built those floors. With one quiet phone call, the balance of power began to shift. This is the story of erasure, arrogance, and a reckoning no one saw coming. Welcome, story lovers. Comment your city name below. Elijah Morgan had worked the late-night janitor shift for years, scrubbing the marble floors of Sutton Tech's gleaming headquarters. Most executives barely noticed him. Dressed in faded blue overalls with a ring of keys at his side, he blended into the background, silent, consistent, invisible. What they didn't know was that Elijah wasn't just a janitor. He was the silent co-founder, the one who helped build Sutton Tech from a garage startup with sweat and sacrifice. After a bitter fallout years ago, he had stepped away quietly, signing a settlement that kept his name out of the public eye. Now, he returned not for ownership, but peace, a man trying to stay grounded. But something about that night felt off. The CEO was visiting late. There were whispers in the hallway, and then, a smirk, a glance thrown his way that told Elijah he was no longer invisible, but not in the way he hoped. The new CEO, Chase Sutton, son of Elijah's former partner, walked the halls with pride and entitlement. Unlike his father, he didn't know Elijah, didn't care about the company's roots, and certainly didn't recognize the older black man polishing the lobby floor. That night, Chase was hosting high-level investors. He wanted everything spotless. But when he saw Elijah cleaning near the executive elevator, his smile faded. He leaned to his assistant and whispered. Minutes later, security approached Elijah. "We've had a complaint about you loitering," one guard said. "I work here," Elijah replied, calmly showing his ID badge. "That doesn't matter," Chase snapped as he approached. "This is a private function. We need the space cleared." Elijah's stomach turned, not because of the humiliation, but because it echoed a past he thought he'd left behind. He swallowed his pride and left the lobby. But in a quiet stairwell, he made a single phone call to an old contact on the board. The next morning, whispers turned into roars. Emails leaked. Elijah's history with the company came to light. And by noon, Chase Sutton was no longer CEO. But viewers wouldn't learn that just yet, because in that moment before the tables turned, Elijah stood alone, a man made small by the very company he helped build. He waited, not for revenge, but for recognition. Something every human deserves. Elijah stood silently as Chase berated him in front of executives, calling him unprofessional, unpresentable, and disruptive. The words weren't just cruel, they were calculated. Cameras were recording. Investors stood awkwardly, unsure whether to laugh or intervene. Elijah's face burned with shame, but he didn't flinch. What Chase didn't know was that the call Elijah had made just minutes earlier had gone straight to the chairman. While Chase spewed insults, a message was already circulating across Sutton Tech's boardroom inboxes, a confidential document outlining Elijah's founding role, photos of the original garage, and a signed letter from the late co-founder naming Elijah as the company's moral compass. By the time Chase stepped off stage, the damage was done. He had humiliated the wrong man, and the world was about to know. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It relief helps. Within 48 hours, Sutton Tech issued a public statement acknowledging Elijah Morgan as a co-founder. Chase Sutton was dismissed, citing misconduct. But Elijah didn't want revenge. He refused a reinstatement, instead requesting a scholarship fund be set up in his name for underprivileged black students pursuing tech careers. He returned to a quiet life, the same one he had before, but now with dignity restored, because this wasn't just a story about a janitor or a CEO, it was about how racism hides in plain sight, about how power doesn't always wear a suit, and how truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way to rise. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.